Hello, my name is Willie Easter Jr., and this is Easter Dead of Rain Films and Books coming at you. Peace. I'm going to do some brief videos of my soon-to-be released animated film entitled HATEGATE. And as you can see from the video on the screen, that's the open logo scene, which I animated. But before I go in depth on the making of it, I'm also do some history about animation that I learned when I was coming up, and my take on animation and some of the different animation techniques, which is not being used in a HATEGATE, but with other animation being used, even some of the Disney films, what they use in the technique of animation. Some is considered animation techniques and others are not, depending on either the Motion Picture Academy or the animator themselves. There's one thing I've noticed, when I do my animations, I pretty much use the keyboard right here, or use the mouse. That's how I animate my films. So let's sit back, and I'm gonna give you a brief history of animation and the techniques that I learned when I was coming up before the release of my animated film entitled HATEGATE. Now, our first stop is new Oscar rules deem motion capture not an animated technique. And the reason why I want to do this is because there's some people who reject your film if you don't use certain techniques or so-called animation techniques. But if you can see right here, Oscar rules deem motion capture not an animation technique. And we're going to go in, I'm going to read bits and pieces of it so you can understand what they're talking about. This guy right here, he's saying last year he wrote a editorial headline, and it was about Avatar at the time. I mean, this particular piece was written back in July 8th, 2010. And he's the writer of it. And again, it says, new Oscar rules deem motion capture not an animation technique. And that's why he brought up the movie Avatar, where you use a lot of motion capture. And they're saying that it's not a traditional animated technique. And again, like I said in my film, I'm not using any type of motion capture or any other technique that's standing outside traditional animation, even though I am using the computer. But I use the keyboard and the mouse, and I move the character using it, and I'll show that later on. But I want to get started off with this, about the motion picture rules about animation, and what is true animation and what is not true animation. Again, this article right here was written back in 2010. And again, it says, new Oscar rules deem motion capture not an animation technique. Another technique is called rotoscoping. And its common technique in practice is used. Rotoscoping is an animation technique that animators use to trace over motion picture footage, frame by frame, to produce realistic action. Originally, live action movie images were projected onto a glass panel and traced onto paper. Now, this technique was originally invented in 1915. And again, it pretty much tells you exactly what it is. I'll read it again for you. Rotoscoping. Rotoscoping is an animated technique that animators use to trace over motion picture footage, frame by frame, to produce realistic action. Originally, live action movie images were projected onto a glass panel and traced onto paper. Simply meaning they use movie images and they trace over frame by frame, which is a tedious task. And you can probably link that to animators like Ralph Bakshi. Disney also used it. And we can go down and we can see what Disney movies use rotoscoping. So we can click on that. They will draw over existing animation cells to make new scenes with characters with similar design, characteristics, and movement. This is also known as rotoscoping. Movies featured in this video: Sleeping Beauty, Beauty and the Beast, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Robin Hood, and the Aristocats. All that use a form of rotoscoping, where you basically are tracing over images of individuals and people in a movie footage, and you trace over it, and you add it to the animation of a character just by tracing over it. And you can tell, like in Ralph Bakshi's film Fire and Ice, you can tell that's rotoscoping. That's pretty much what it is. It's rotoscoping. Because the characters move a little too realistic, and sometimes you can tell that the characters are out of context in some of the fight sequences. Even though the story is pretty good and the artwork is very, very, very good, but you can tell that it's not a real or original form of animation. But like I said earlier, it was something that was invented in 1915. Now again, my film entitled HATEGATE, I don't use these type of techniques. But I'm just giving you just a brief history of animations and some of the different techniques they use in order to bring an animated film to life and put it on the screen. I'm not trying to downplay dislike any of the methods they use. Just that in my film, I tried to stick to some of the cell animation, which is basically you draw an image on a cell, one cell at a time, and you move certain parts of the character until you build up a library of motion. And then you film that and you let it run simultaneously, and you get the illusion of motion and life on the screen. That's my particular definition of it. And you go here, is rotoscoping still used today? You can click on that. Yes, rotoscoping is still widely used today. However, and you can read that and you can give a more clear understanding of it, because a lot of it went over to computer animation. That's when they start using motion captures, where they basically capturing motion with little white balls, and the computer read it, and then they add that to either a mannequin or pre-built puppet or animated character that they put on a grid. And once they use that, they can pretty much add the animation to the character, and you get something that appears to be motion. But it's coming from human beings and other type of objects. Like if they want to animate a dog, they put the balls on a dog, have it walk and sit and those type of things. It's not considered a true technique of animation. And that makes us jump over to this particular animation software. It's Poser. It's from Curious Labs. And this is Poser 6. It's a couple of years old. And I'm using, I'm still using Windows XP. So you got Poser 6, and it's pretty much an upgraded version of it. And you see my name there, because it is my copy of Poser 6, which I do have a copy of Poser 10. show you some of the techniques I use in my animated film, especially the one that's coming up called HATEGATE. Title, HATEGATE. And you can see the development team, Larry Weinberg, right there. He's one of the guys who developed Poser in the very beginning. And by the way, I sent copies of my animated films to Curious Labs out in California. You can call it eFrontier. And I showed them some of the animation I'd done with using Poser, and they actually sent me a free copy of Poser 6 back in 2005 when I first released. I was very thankful for that too. Got a free copy of it. Okay. I'll go in and I'll load one of my already set up animations. That way you can see the difference between rotoscoping and motion captured animation. Let's see which one I'm gonna bring in. Well, these are copied files right here. After you build a scene, add characters and texture and light, you can save it and then you can come back in and reopen it. Let's take a look at this one. HATEGATE J Neil in Part 1. This is what the pretty much interface look like. You get different tools you can use. As I was saying, HATEGATE is nearly ready for release. I got 56 minutes completed. Sound, voiceover, special effects, edited, put together. 4 more minutes. It'll be an hour-long film, and that's why I'm gonna conclude it. It may go 1 hour, maybe 1 minute over, something like that. But I try not to make my films no longer than an hour, because it's time consuming. Let's wait for him to load. Okay, loaded now. We're going to switch back to the front end. There we go. Now this is a scene with our antagonist main character, Jay Williams, and he's dressed sort of like in a mummy's bandages, and he's in the Tomb of the Ancients, where he had to pass the test. And I'll let you take a look at. Now this is some animation I've done on my own just by using some of the poses that's actually in the software, where you can make him turn and then you can use the camera and have him walk down the steps like that. And the scene will come all the way out like that. And you see in the background, you see all the atmosphere of hair fire and soot and ash, because he's in the in-between world. And we can go check out another one. Now this is what a mannequin or a digital character would look like on a grid before you add any clothing to him. Or any props or background or other characters in the scene. And you can use the part over here. You can go in all directions, or you can use the middle part and zoom in to the character. Come down, and you can actually click on the part of the character, like his arm or his shoulder, and you can bring down a dial box. And the dial box will give you the ability to move certain parts of the character, like this. You can bend it and try to get it as closest to realism as possible. And that's how I animate my films. I use pretty much these dial boxes, which you see on the right here, to animate the character. You can also go to his face and rotate his head in the direction you want it to go in. And you can animate that by creating at the bottom right here, see my arrow? I can add frames to the scene. Let's go 30. Come on your keyboard and you just type 30. And it goes into the white box. And you click the center of it and it stays. Now, when you do that, let's say you want to move him, let's go 10 frames. Now remember, if you go 10 frames, it also depends on the speed you want it to move as, among other factors. And say you want to move his head to that direction, have him turn. Then you slide it to another 10 frames, which would end up being 20. And you turn his head back around. Then you hit down his arm and you bend that back down, like that. Let's say you want to move his abdomen. Just that part. Go back to his head. Now, you can move your frame to the last 20, by 10. That's a total of 30. Bring his head down just a little. At the same time, you can move the camera, which adds even better dimension in it, because then you get the same being moved. Then we can go ahead and we can click on reset it back to the beginning and let it run simultaneously. So that's just an example of how you can animate it just by using the dial box of the character. And that's how I animate my film. Instead of using motion captures or rotoscoping or other tricks and techniques that animators use to enhance their films, which, like I said, I'm not gonna put it down. But my film is completely using the keyboard and the mouse. Now I can also slow that down if I wanted to by removing those frames at 120. And to slow it down, you, instead of doing, let's clear that out first, go back to 1. And you clear it out, that way it's clean. You got no animation. You can move all you want to, you got no animation. And then add the 120. Reset your scene up. And then you go, instead of going 10 frames, you go 30 frames. Now 30 frames will give it a much more real world feel, like he's actually in the real world, and you're moving either between 60 frames or 30 frames. That way his head movement and his body movement won't be so fast. It'll be sort of like normal. Click on his arm. Like that. Then you do another 30 frames. That'd be 60 then. Slowly bring his head back around just a little. At the same time, you can move the camera. Then you give it another 30 frames. Now it will become 90. You can bring his head back around, just like that. And we'll leave it at 90 frames. Now we're going to do the whole thing. And another 30 will make it 120. And you can zoom in just a little to it. Like that, just zoom in. Now, go back and re-click it and let it run. See? He's moving a lot more human. Not too fast, not too slow, but, and you let the camera move around him just a little. That way you can get the animation you want. He's not moving too fast or too slow. And he moves more realistically as a human, instead of being jerky or too fast. And it is time consuming, and you have to be patient with it, because you got to probably have to do a lot of redos, you know, which if you're dedicated to getting it right, you don't mind doing redos. Which Police, when I originally done the first draft of Police, the animated movie, was in 2009. The movie wasn't ready for publication until 2019, and I finally found a distributor in 2020. HATEGATE was originally the first draft in 2009. But I pretty much let it sit for a while. I add scenes every once in a while to it until where it is now, 2023, 4 more minutes, it'll be a complete film. Because it is time consuming, because life goes on. It's not going to stand still. And you can't stand still. And in the process of buying computers and software, and sometimes a lot of animation software goes out of date. You have to continue to upgrade your to different Windows platforms, and a lot of the animation applications no longer work. Like Poser 6 doesn't work on Windows 11 or Windows 10. It actually stopped working on Windows 7. It can no longer be used. And now I'm going to show you a couple of scenes from HATEGATE. This is one of the completed scenes in HATEGATE.
Will you please shut the hell up, deceiver, liar, hater of love and life? You know, it's a shame, really. You laying over here while your ass is laying over there. That's a shame. How could this be? When you yourself to see me and pretend to be your devil. You're defeated. It is written. Those who deceive will eventually get deceived. You continue to mock me, you nasty human. You better kill me. Come on. Kill me now. So now I come to mind. This board is where you shall remain for all eternity. Face all those who destroy and deceive. You should never escape this prison. Will you please shut the hell up?
And that was a loop. And like I was saying earlier in the film, everything you see here, it was done a scene at a time. It wasn't done all together one time. It was done a scene at a time. That way you can control what you see, the anglement, and the animation. And that's why I wanted to show you the difference between rotoscoping and motion capture compared to using the keyboard and the mouse and actually animating it yourself. And as you can see, a lot of the animation in my film are very smoothly animated. They look like real human movement. And that's what I was trying to capture when I done police animated film and now my upcoming film, HATEGATE. And that's why it takes me so long to do my film, because I'd rather use my own animation and create my own style of animation than depending on motion captures or trying to use rotoscoping, which a lot of the earlier masters use. I call them masters because they master the gin, okay? When you use rotoscoping, you make an entire film on that. It is a tedious, painstaking process because you got to trace over human movement and add it to your character in order to get it to look like it's actually moving, but it's not. I just want to get those who are interested in my film prepared for the upcoming film entitled HATEGATE, because I'm excited to get to this point where it's near release, because I want it done right, and I want it to be successful. And whether it make a lot of money or not, which I'm not going to really downplay it, because I wanted to make money so I can continue to make my animated films, write my poetries and stuff like that. And that way I can get my movies and my company off the ground without having to let investors invest in what I'm doing. See, whatever amount of money I lose, that's what I'm putting in there. I'm investing in my own film. I don't want no outside interest or outside investors, because if the film fails and flops, they lose their money. But if you do fail and flop, which I'm doing everything in my power to make sure I don't, the one who's going to lose money is me. But I still enjoy the experience, and I still enjoy the process of making animated films. Again, my name is Willie Jr. This is the Easter Dead Dream Films and Books. Look out for my new animated film entitled HATEGATE, which will be coming soon. Peace.